Hello, I'm Kelly Blazer, and I want to talk to you a little bit more about spring clearing. This video that I'm about to make was the intention was to have this be the initial spring clearing orientation video for the people that are in the program, and I decided to just give it away to everyone for free because I'm such a big believer in this approach to generating change in our lives that I kind of want everyone to have it. And also, I think that if you watch this video, you will know if this really is an appropriate fit for you. This can be a very powerful process. I have had the personal experience of moving through the spring clearing process with cohorts of Dharma Bridge for many years, probably 5 years or so. And personally, I've gained tremendously, and also just watching people go through the spring clearing process, the discovery that comes with spring clearing has been super rewarding and satisfying. So I hope that you will consider if this will be a good fit in your life. I'm going to bring up a screen here. So I'm imagining that you already watched the first video that was really just a mild introduction to what's happening here in the program and a little bit of my background. I'm assuming you've watched that. So just so that you know, this spring clearing is coming up quite soon, starts on May 3rd. It will be just a weekly meeting time, but there will be a lot of kind of inner work that happens that goes along with that. So the first question is like, what is a clearing? What are we going to clear? And I'd say the first promise of the program is that you will begin to really investigate what is ripe for change in your life. And you'll establish a clearing project around your personal needs, and those needs could arise in any arena of your life. So your clearing might be super simple. It actually might be like you need to clear stuff. You've been a little bit too much of a hoarder. You need to move some stuff out, and you need to be conscious. You really feel like you want to be conscious about how that's happening and what your relationship is with stuff. Maybe though it's a habit in the arena of self-care or health, a way that you've been kind of ignoring yourself, your well-being, whatever, and you want to clear that habit or that dissociation or that neglect or whatever you want to call it. Maybe there's been just kind of an inability to center yourself for your spiritual life. And so the clearing is about clearing space in your home for an altar, in your schedule for spiritual practice. Maybe the clearing is around how you've been operating in your relationships. Maybe there's been a way that you haven't been fully self-expressed and you want to clear fear around self-expression or what have you. It could be in any of these arenas: work, finance, creativity, play. The very center circle here in this image is self, essence, life force. And really, that's a reminder that all of these different arenas of life are arisings of self, essence, life force. And we are inherently perfect and need no change. And yet we also really get pulled in by the strength of habit and the tendency to kind of adapt to ways of being that aren't in alignment with our values. So the Clearing Project is an opportunity to kind of reconnect essence nature with whatever arena is we are looking at, whatever the arena is that we are looking at in the clearing. So the Clearing Project has three branches, and one is the overarching intention. One branch is the qualities of being that you consciously choose to center and cultivate in yourself through the clearing, be it calm or willingness or authenticity or compassion, whatever the qualities are that you choose to center. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And then one of the branches is tangible actions. So the first thing that we do with the Clearing Project is we create a declaration. And in the beginning, we're just really exploring. Like, this is all an experiment and a discovery process. So sometimes the declaration seems like it's really just kind of a grasping at straws because we're not 100% sure what we're going for here, what we're all about. But just the process of creating the declaration will give us insight into what's really right for clearing and how the clearing can happen at a level that's not just superficial. Because ultimately, we're not trying to actually get rid of anything. Clearing doesn't mean eradicating. Clearing doesn't mean annihilating. Clearing means we're actually developing a deeper intimacy with all aspects of what's happening in our lives and centering a particular vision for what we want to generate and what we want to let go of. So the declaration that you create will guide your work through the whole month of the spring clearing. And it includes these two main components, the articulation of an overarching vision, as well as certain qualities of being that you consciously choose, as I listed above. Maybe you choose compassion, maybe you choose courage, maybe you choose playfulness, maybe you choose intimacy, maybe you choose awe and wonder. Then these qualities will really grow within you and begin to imprint themselves on your nervous system as you move through the month of clearing, because you will remember them every time you engage with your clearing project. So the overarching vision of the clearing project is a little bit more kind of addressing, first of all, clarifying potentially the arena, like, all right, in the arena of my finances, I'm going to clear whatever, I'm just making something up here, like recurring subscriptions that no longer serve me and extraneous expenses that are not meeting my needs at this time. Or in the arena of relationship, I'm going to clear the tendency to repress my feelings and needs and not be fully self-expressed, something like that. I'm going to clear the resistance to courageous self-expression. So you can see even in there, it's like, what are we clearing? What are we creating? So the overarching vision of the clearing project identifies what we're clearing, and it also may allude to what's being created through the clearing. And then the second part of the articulation, the declaration, is the qualities of being that I'm cultivating through this process are. So I have my own qualities that I'm working with right now. So three of of my qualities are authenticity, devotion, and liberation. You will come up with your own, and they can be anything. I mean, we begin with metta, loving kindness, and the practices of the Brahma Viharas in Dharma Bridge and in the Clearing Project. And so you'll already from the very beginning kind of begin with this practice of meeting yourself with loving kindness, meeting all parts of yourself with loving kindness. So you may connect to loving kindness and compassion and equanimity and empathetic joy as the qualities that you want to work with, but your clearing project may really bring you into relationship with a completely different quality that you consciously choose and choose to center and choose to cultivate and choose to become kind of more intimate with and in relationship with as we move through the clearing. Tangible actions are the third branch, and they're not part of the declaration per se, because they change throughout the course of the program. We're doing the clearing project for a month. It may extend a little bit. It may extend beyond that for you. This may just be the initiation. You may personally carry on with this clearing project for a year, if it's something that's really ingrained in your life and is going to take some deep work. This might set you on course to develop a whole new lifestyle around something that you want to have emerge in your life. So the tangible actions may transform week to week and beyond. And sometimes they'll just develop spontaneously. They'll basically emerge from the declaration. The declaration tends to stay more or less fixed. So sometimes it changes as well. Sometimes the investigation inside the process, we realize that the declaration needs to be transformed a little bit. So one of the most amazing things about the Clearing Project is it really is an experiment in non-duality, and it is a discovery of parts within. So sometimes we might investigate, like, where did this Clearing Project come from? There's a part of me that really chose the clearing, that wrote the declaration, that is kind of oriented around what I want for my life, what my vision is. But there might be other parts of yourself that really resist, that just dig in their heels. And this is really important to see into. And you could almost say this is the very center of the approach that we're taking, because this is what really differentiates the Clearing Project from some other, kind of more standard self-improvement process, or goals. This is what differentiates the Clearing Project from goals work. Because even if your clearing is say it's really important to you to clear procrastination or dissociation. It's getting in the way at work. It's making it so that you can't kind of manage the chores of your life well. And so you really want to clear procrastination. Okay, great. We get to center that. You want to find willingness. I'm just making this up, but say the qualities you want to find are willingness and courage and kind of quick-footedness, like a willingness to move into action, an orientation toward action. What would that quality be called? Like, I think willingness is probably the best. So let me just say it's willingness and maybe it's willingness and clarity and maybe it's freedom. Let's say it's willingness, clarity, and freedom. Okay, so a part of you chooses that, the willingness, the freedom, the clarity, and another part of you resists. Another part of you is tired. Another part of you is, has a lot of the tendency to dissociate. It didn't come from nowhere. There may be a trauma history. There may be a way in which you have a real aversion to how productive society wants you to be. And you're really looking to kind of decolonize the mind and like move the intensity of productivity into to come into a better balance with that. So there's another part of you that has a completely different way of being. So how do you reconcile this? This is the most probably interesting and complex and beautiful part of the process. How does the self that you are, kind of the essence that you are, get into relationship with the fact that there are different parts of you that have different needs and sometimes appear to be at odds? How do you work with that? So the clearing project is an awareness practice. It is not about achieving the goal, though that is often a fringe benefit. It is an awareness practice. So it is an incredible experiment in non-duality because the qualities, in this case, I was talking about willingness and clarity, etc. But the quality specifically of like loving kindness and compassion, those qualities get extended toward all parts, regardless of any success. So this is a kind of no punishment, no reward approach to clearing. Not that you can't celebrate, but what you're most deeply celebrating is the awareness that comes through being in relationship with the parts. So one way to think about this is to ask yourself, and this usually comes like once the articulation of the declaration is there, and you sit with the clearing project and work with it for a few days or a week or something, then you'll get to ask yourself, is this clearing project really coming from center? Is it coming from source? Is it coming from self energy? Or is it a concoction of kind of a singular part of myself, such as a manager trying to keep exiled parts of myself at bay? I'll talk about that more in a moment. So it's often the case that we realize in the beginning of a clearing project that we've constructed the whole project from a part of oneself that's actually seeking control. So maybe there's kind of this energy of like this managerial energy that's trying to control the whole internal system, to use internal family systems language, and trying to get all of the more creative or distractible or resistant parts in line. So we get to be in relationship with that, like to recognize, oh, this managerial part, it really, there's a need here that is important. But there are these other parts whose needs are also important. So how can we extend willingness toward the whole system? How can we extend metta, loving kindness, toward the whole system? That's what ends up being really interesting, because what we're seeking is not control. What we're seeking ultimately is freedom and intimacy. So just a quote from Dick Schwartz, the founder of IFS. Any approach that increases your inner drill sergeant's impulse to shame you into behaving and make you feel like a failure if you can't will do no better in internal families than it does in external ones in which parents adopt shaming tactics to control their children. So this is an image by Jay Earley from the book Self Therapy. And we're just looking here at the kind of structure of the psyche before and after internal family systems therapy. Now, the Clearing Project is not based solely on IFS, internal family systems, at all. There are a lot of Dharma roots in the way that we're approaching it, and approaches that really come from somatics and mindfulness. But parts work, not just internal family systems version of parts work, but the Gestalt version of parts work is important. And so you'll hear quite a lot about this through the Clearing Project. So in in this image, the structure of the psyche before internal family systems therapy is as depicted here. It's a bit complex. Like there's certain parts of oneself that are hidden behind a curtain, and the self, essence, true nature, which is represented by a heart here, is obscured by the protectors. You see the wizard, the judge, the kind of timekeeper, the maybe workaholic, the tin man, a tantruming child, the little rage cloud there. Protectors obscure essence. And we all know what it feels like to be disconnected from essence and to be really caught in one of these energies, like a really angry, tantruming energy or a workaholic energy. It is pretty easy for self, though it is our innate essence, nature. It is easy for it to be obscured. And those protectors, when they are dominating the system, they determine feelings and actions. So when we do this work, what slowly we begin to see is that those protectors were actually trying really hard to keep the whole system in balance by hiding the exiles behind a curtain, kind of to keep the system from getting flooded emotionally or overwhelmed emotionally by the energy of the exiles, which tend to carry shame and fear and also a tremendous amount of creativity and beauty and love, but they can tend to carry much more overwhelming feelings because they come from parts of ourselves, in some cases, that kind of developed, kind of threads of our experience that developed in difficult times, potentially in moments of trauma, or times when we were kind of too young, precognitive, maybe pre-verbal, too young to really understand what was going on. So there's very strong somatic energies and strong emotional energies associated with the exiles. So as we go through the process of transforming the psyche through this investigation, little by little, we kind of, sorry, got a little emergency alert going on there. So as we go through this process, we start to get to know how the protector energies, in a sense, they have the system's best interest at heart in trying to keep the exiles hidden. So some of the really extreme perspectives of the protectors seem like they are, toxic to the system. They can seem like they are just wreaking havoc, creating chaos. If you think if your life starts to get run by the like little tantruming girl in the overalls, like that's not going to bode well. You can do harm. You can do a lot of harm in relationships. You can, if you are a certain way over and over again, kind of running your relationships with anger or shaming, or if you're withdrawing into workaholism, or if you're just in constant judge mode, then it's pretty easy to do harm in your life. And so it's quite problematic. So we often think of those parts as kind of sabotaging us. But as we start to realize that those parts are actually trying to keep the system from getting engulfed and flooded by other energies, then we can start to be more curious and compassionate about all the different parts. And as soon as we start to get kind of in relationship and in dialogue with those parts, then little by little, the self becomes the center of the psyche. The exiles are brought forward in front of the curtain, and the different parts of ourselves, once we see them, are content to cooperate as opposed to jockeying for position and really trying to um, kind of attain primacy. It is until we do this work, parts, which each have their own preferences, beliefs, and agency, energies, thoughts, feelings, language patterns, sensations, imaginations, they really jockey for position. They really want to attain primacy and influence within the system, and they have a variety of strategies to get there. And because they've lost trust in the leadership of the self, the language in IFS is that they are burdened. They are really entrenched in their views and their stances. And when that happens, when they don't trust the self, source, essence, nature, they kind of blend. Like we tend to get blended with those parts and identified with the parts, and then they can really take us over. So it's a profound process to go through this transformation of the psyche. And one of the ways that we do it in the Clearing Project is through a real discovery of the subtle body, feeling into the subtleties in the central channel and throughout the body in general, as we watch how different parts emerge. And what we essentially do is we return to these qualities over and over again. So in your declaration, as I said, there's an overarching vision, and then there are these consciously chosen qualities. And they can be very simple. Maybe peace is one of your qualities. For me, I've worked a lot with clear, light, willing, and I have them sort of placed in my awareness in the subtle body in these particular places that are personal to me, authentic, devoted, liberated. And every time I work with a clearing project, I am returning to these qualities. And so as I have, my project this year is around writing, and developing discipline around writing. But it's not, discipline is not the right word. If I were doing like kind of a more standard garden variety, like the way society pressures us to be good people, that version, then I might just think about it as a discipline to generate more writing. But that's not actually what I want. What I want is, and this is, listen to this because this is applicable, this will be applicable regardless of what your project is. So if you think about your project and what you want, there is a felt sense of what you want. So what I want through my writing is, I want to experience myself as authentic. I want to experience like this capacity to be really like liberated and speak what I believe is true, even if in the moment, even if it's not, the whole entire truth. I want to find a way to move through the confusion so that I can come to truth by just authentically expressing what is arising as true, moment by moment. So that's one. I want to experience myself as devoted. I want to find like a way to, I'm very devoted to freedom, to loving kindness for all beings, for the absolute interconnectedness of all beings. I'm very devoted to that to awakening to that in my lifetime, and that's the core of the work that I'm doing. So that's what I want to experience. Do I want to experience discipline through writing? Yes, but only as an expression of the devotion that I feel toward awakening itself for all beings. So as you work with your project, you'll look at your overarching vision and think about how you really want to feel. Like if you were to achieve, quote unquote, the outcome that the overarching vision is carrying you toward, how would you feel? Because let's start from the beginning with those qualities, cultivating those qualities. Let's return again and again to the subtle body and kind of imprint the subtle body, your energetic center, with these consciously chosen qualities, so that even if you have a day where either life gets in the way and you can't do anything, and you can't take any action toward your clearing project, even if you have a day where you have a total breakdown and you kind of get taken over by a part of you that does not want to engage in the clearing project, even on that day, you are offering to those parts of yourself. I am devoted to awakening. I am here to be in intimate relationship with all aspects of myself, even the parts that really feel rogue, even the parts that really feel like they're taking me out. I'm curious about what is going on. Like, what is going on with that shame? What is going on with that rage? What is going on with that like compulsion to be perfect? We get to look at those aspects of self, and instead of experiencing them as enemies that are sabotaging the project, we get to be curious about what the needs are, and we get to send all of those parts, loving kindness, devotion, liberation, our like the immensity of our authentic care, and your particular qualities will meet the need for you, will meet needs for you that nobody else could meet. And so the capacity to kind of come home to yourself through this project is really strong. So you'll start to work with the declaration kind of as a mantra. And obviously, working with that mantra and the qualities of being are embedded in the declaration. And it's very powerful to energetically kind of imprint your body with these qualities that you've chosen to cultivate and center throughout the clearing. This may be obvious, but the Clearing Project is really a profound investigation of the non-dual view. So as I've just been talking about, there's a kind of a non-dual view around how we work with different aspects of self, but also how is clearing also a creation? How are all arisings of consciousness? And the ultimate non-dual view within the non-dual Shaiva tradition is this understanding of all arising as an arising of consciousness itself, engaging in these five acts. And the five acts are creation, maintenance, dissolution or clearing, concealment, and revelation. Sometimes we conceal to ourselves that we are consciousness itself, and sometimes that is revealed. Sometimes we see clearly into all arisings as consciousness, including self as the seat of consciousness, the locus of consciousness. So we'll start to, that might be too much if you've not been exposed to Shaivism before, so just let that go if that was overwhelming. But how is clearing also an act of creation? Because these five acts, which are an expression of how consciousness plays in the world of form and pulsates in and out of the world of form as kind of the subject, the subjective capacity of consciousness engages with this tangible objective world. So the five acts, the teaching around the five acts is really an exploration of how it is happening all the time. There's always something new emerging. There's always something being maintained. There's always something being reabsorbed into consciousness. That reabsorption, that dissolution, that clearing is absolutely sacred. And so, sometimes clearing projects are about developing a different kind of relationship with things that are already being cleared. Maybe life has already stripped away huge places in your life where you had a lot of attachment. And so it's possible that your clearing project is about making peace with, clearing resistance to uh, certain arenas of letting go that are happening inherently. So that'll be fun, the investigation of the non-dual view. So I hope that was helpful. I feel like that was a lot of information, and I tried to give you a lot because it will really help you if you decide to join the Clearing Project, which I truly hope that you will. It will really help you to have kind of let this sink in a little bit, and to just begin to be in relationship with these different components. So come back and revisit any element of this video that you need to see again, and begin by like letting yourself just, in a sense, keep it simple and just begin. Like, it doesn't matter if your declaration is the perfect declaration, because you can evolve it if you need to. It even doesn't matter if the qualities are precisely what you need to center, because you can transform them if you need to. And usually the qualities end up being perfect, and your understanding of the quality will morph as you get into deeper relationship with it. So just begin with the declaration, just step in, and in the container of this clearing, you'll have an opportunity to be witnessed in the transformation that you go through. And that is the sweetness, being witnessed and being able to witness one another. It'll be good fun. All right, take good care. I will hopefully see you on the inside. You are worth this. It is valuable work. It is truly the gift that keeps on giving.